Hello and welcome to another Board Crazy review. I am D. I am joined, as ever, by these two.
I'm Graham.
And I am Big Blue Will.
You're both blue today.
Yeah, well, that's because
As am I.
genies are traditionally blue.
That's-
Haven't you seen the Will Smith trailer for
The
Aladdin?
Will Smith trailer. Yes, that's what
Yeah.
they call it, the Will Smith trailer. Good point. You've got me there.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we are reviewing today 5 Tribes, the Djinns of Naqala by Bruno Cathala.
Hey.
So, as ever, we're going to be running my intro from our gameplay video so you get a basic idea of how the game is played. If you want to skip that, there will be a time that you can move your little time bar to and just move right past it. Right, Will?
Killed it, D.
Yeah! Roll the tape! 5 Tribes is a game for 2 to 4 players, designed by Bruno Cathala and published by Days of Wonder. The goal of the game is to have the most victory points at the very end by controlling locations, resources, djinns, and the 5 tribes themselves. Each player starts the game with 50 gold coins in their possession. The game's board is set up by placing the 30 tiles randomly into a 5x6 rectangle, and then 3 meeples are drawn randomly from the bag and placed on each of these tiles. Then 9 resource cards and 3 djinn cards are flipped face up in a line next to their draw decks. Every round starts with the players bidding for turn order. This is done by one at a time moving the turn marker from the bid order track to an open space on the move order track and then paying the associated cost listed on that space. The order in which the bidding is done is determined by the turn order from the previous round, except for in the first round where it is done randomly. Once this is done, the players then each take their turn. After returning the turn marker to the bid order track, the next thing a player does on their turn is move meeples. To do so, they pick up all meeples from a single tile and then place them one at a time in an orthogonal path of tiles until all have been placed down. The last meeple must match the color of a meeple present on the final tile, and there is no immediate backtracking allowed. Once this is done, players will collect the last meeple and any other meeples from that tile of matching color and take them into their hand. If this clears out the tile, the player takes control of it and places one of their camels on that location. Then the player will be able to carry out actions based on the meeples they collected and the tile they took the meeples from. Each color of meeple represents a different member of the tribe, and each comes with its own special action. Additionally, each tile will have some sort of ability on it, which will allow players to do things like add palaces or oases to the board, or collect resources or buy djinn. At the end of a player's turn, they have the option, if they choose, to turn in sets of different types of resource cards in exchange for certain amounts of gold, depending on how many cards get turned in. After this, the resource and djinn cards are replenished as necessary. The game ends once on the turn in which a player either places their last camel or there are no more legal moves remaining on the board. Once the game is over, victory points are tallied up. Points are earned from a number of things, such as gold you have remaining, as well as certain meeples you may have in your possession. The tiles you own each have their own victory point value, and any additional palaces or palm trees found in those tiles get points as well. After this is done, the player with the most victory points is of course the winner, and they are declared the new Sultan of the 5 tribes. That went smoothly, I think. Not a single flub in that introduction, let me tell you. 5 tribes!
Did you say something? I actively try to ignore
Glad you guys are paying
everything he
attention.
says. No.
Once he starts talking, I just...
It's good for banter when no one hears each other.
Yeah.
So, that's what I've heard. 5 tribes.
The Djinns of Naqala.
Oh, don't do that.
I didn't like this game
Okay.
until you said that name right there, Naqala, and it rhymed with Cathala, and now I like it.
Now you like it.
Yeah.
The entire game was built around a rhyme.
Yep.
Anyway.
Thank you for watching, everyone. If you liked this video, before we get to anything else, we should probably talk about the gameplay, D.
I feel like we're going to have some differences of opinions on this video.
I don't know. I think we're all going to agree.
Change. We'll see. I'm struggling with this game a little bit. I like fundamentally, I think it's sound and kind of fun, but there are parts of how it works that I don't love.
Well, why don't you say what you don't like specifically?
Okay.
These parts, and then I'll counter with why you're wrong.
What do I get to do?
You can sit here and judge who wins between.
Oh,
the
okay. I like this. This is how the review should go.
yeah.
Yes.
No, Graham, you're allowed to interject with your own opinions, please.
Well, that's what he'll do. He'll agree with me.
Okay, so how to word this? Like the strategy in this game is if you even want to call it that. I don't like how
It's like more of a tactical strategy rather than like a grand scheme kind of thing.
Kind of.
It's like turn to turn, you try to figure out
You can't plan ahead.
No, not at all.
Kind of bothers me, like, because in a game like this, especially where there are a lot of different like tactics you can take towards victory. Like you can there are like a lot of ways, certain points that you can focus on certain ones versus other ones. But this is a game where you kind of have to go with the flow a lot, and that can be a problem because I think it's one of these games where if you get spread out and you try to like touch on everything, you're gonna fail. There's a lot of stuff going on, but you really cannot I think win and also engage with every mechanic the game has to offer in a single game.
I agree with that, but that doesn't mean I necessarily dislike that in this game. I think it was done in a way that kind of helps you see all the different tactics you can take in this game, whether that comes from the viziers, the yellow viziers, or the if you want to focus on pals, like whatever is there at that time, you can try to do that. There's no like, I'm gonna try to get the most viziers and that's going to be my strategy. You can't do that because that's not going to be like.
That's true.
I understand what you're saying, but I think it just comes down to a difference of opinion on whether you like that kind of game or you don't. I tend to agree with you, but I like a more grand strategy. You try to figure out what you want to do and move towards it.
This is more tactics.
But I thought the way they did the tactics in this game were very nicely done. There was enough there that you didn't feel like everyone was going for the same 3 tactics every single turn. I felt like everything was used. I didn't feel like anything was really just like the.
I think between all the players, yes, everything will probably get used.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. I felt there was nothing extraneous there that really made it seem okay. They didn't need to put that in the game.
Bruno Cathala makes games like this all the time, where you have to adapt in the moment, like Yamatai or Kanagawa is another one that comes to mind. King Domino, Queen Domino. They're all games that you have to.
Adapt throughout the game.
Yeah, it's like a real time. And what I personally like that the main mechanic, where you take meeples, you move them around, you finish, you take one color, and you can activate that color. I think that mechanic is really well utilized in this game, and it also it means that no two games are ever alike because of it. Because you don't know how the board is going to play out. You don't know what people are going to value, what they're going to... And it means that I actually like that. You said that not every mechanic is utilized, and that you didn't like that. I don't really think that's a problem in this game.
Yeah, I didn't say I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I just think that not being necessarily a viable strategy can sort of, I don't know, I feel like hurt the game a little bit.
I think this game has so many mechanics that not being able to use a few of them as an individual isn't that big of a deal because it always gives you ways.
No, what I'm saying is that that's good. Mm-hmm. Focusing is good. I generally would not want to engage with every single thing.
Okay.
The thing in this is that you might be in a situation where you're kind of forced to do something that is suboptimal for yourself, and maybe go for market cards when you're not focusing on market cards because the rest of the board has been messed up.
Yes and no, though, because Graham is right. He brought up the initiative tracker and how, so in this game, first off, the initiative tracker, we should talk about how brilliant that is. The fact that you can, I like that there's preset numbers that you can bid, so it's not chaos when there's bidding. You can only bid up to 18, and then there's intervals in between, and I think the first turn is the only turn where you don't really quite know what to bid because it's not really, the board hasn't moved at all. But then later on, it becomes more apparent what you should bid. Because, sometimes there are moves, like the first player is going to get the best move, you can tell. And then other times, it might be smarter to wait and just bid nothing and wait for someone to open up moves for you. And I think that's kind of what you were talking about, how, sometimes the board can be, I guess, messed up for you or there's nothing ideal. And that's what the initiative tracker allows you to play with, your position when you come in the turn, so you can maybe take advantage of a less ideal layout. And even if you don't have an ideal board, I still think with enough analysis, which is I think it may be a part of we can get to with the cons, but with enough analysis, I feel like I at least always felt like my moves, even when they were less ideal, were still moving me towards either a more ideal move later or still I'm just getting points,
That's fair.
There are a lot of games where it's you get screwed and that's it. There's no points getting that. You're not
Well,
getting
yes,
anything that round.
you will generally be doing something productive on your turn.
Yeah.
You can't. It's difficult to end up with nothing good. It's not impossible. Like the red assassins sometimes, but I do like when it comes to like the bidding. It's sort of it's a weird thing. I think it's fun. I think it's fun. It's maybe actually the most fun part of the game is a little bit of tension when everyone's you're gonna see where you're gonna fall in the turn order this turn. I just feel like there's a slight disconnect between it and the rest of the game, where like there's a bit of an element of luck to this system. That you could constantly bid first for yourself if you want to. You could do that. I think it's probably not a winning strategy though, because you're gonna be
shedding victory points at a high rate
frequently
because you pay coins. And I have just a side tangent here. I do love that the part of the initiative bidding is that you're bidding coins, but those coins are also victory points.
You're bidding victory points.
That's a
for
interesting balance.
Initiative. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's just if you end up in a situation where if you're going second or third, it's going to go one of two ways. Either the person or people ahead of you are going to be just completely messing up whatever plan you had made during the bidding, and you're like, okay, I've got to pivot. I've got to pause the game pretty much to reevaluate what I'm going to be doing here, or they're going to be putting you in a situation where they're going to be opening up new opportunities for you, where there's even there's a better play here now than there was previously. So there's more luck to it than I would like.
I get what you're saying. There's almost not enough reward for being first sometimes, for bidding the most, and there's not enough punishment for being tentative and not bidding enough.
It needs to be a punishment. It's I don't know.
Or maybe there's too much reward sometimes for going last or going second, is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. It's totally viable in this game to not constantly, but almost always go towards the end. But every once in a while, pick your spots and go first. Which it's fine. That is a strategy in and of itself. It's just, I don't know.
But then there are the moments that happen every game where there's clearly, before the round starts, a dominant move that you can get a ton of points from, and then there's that balance, like, I could get maybe 15, 16 points from this move. Do I bid 12,
Yeah.
Do I bid only 5, or, you know what I mean? Like, you're trying to figure out what's that sweet point where you can get the move and still make a little, come out of it with profit in a way. And then everyone's trying to, like, figure out, like, should I outbid them and sabotage them?
Yeah.
Those moments are, they're just brilliant. There's no other way to put it. I love... There's that one tile that's worth 15. There's always a moment where that... Well, not always, but there's often a moment where that one becomes available in a game. And, man, can the bidding on that one get interesting.
Yeah.
Another thing I like a lot about the gameplay is how every game... Now, this, I guess, could harm replayability, but I still think this is a very highly replayable game. But every game progresses in such a way that the game changes literally over the course of its runtime or playtime. Like early on, I think is when the game's at its weakest. It's completely random, because the board's full of meeples. There's 3 or 4 on each. 4, right?
3.
And there's virtually no strategy. You can't have one really, unless happens to be a tile that has 3 of the same color on it, which means that you didn't do
that. Everyone's gonna go for that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why you probably should make sure that never happens. So it's kind of a crapshoot early on.
Maybe my issue with this game is that it never lets you feel clever. You're either doing the obvious thing or you're in a really tough situation and you're just doing the best you can.
That's not true. I feel like there are some moments in the game where Graham, I remember, used the assassinate to a high effect to the point where I didn't see that assassinate. Like, I didn't see how... because the assassinate allows you to assassinate up to a number of tiles depending on how many assassins you grab.
Yeah.
So sometimes I don't see that, like, I could get 3 assassins here, then assassinate 3 away. So I think, at least with the assassin mechanic, especially, I often, just because of the way my brain works when I play games like this, those moves I often miss. Like, I just don't see.
Yeah.
So there are moments where you can feel clever.
To tie that back into the point that I interrupted, the red assassins are probably the most blatant example of how the game progresses.
Yeah, that's part of what I was going to say.
Early on, they're basically useless.
Yep.
And then towards the end of the game, they are by far the most useful, I think, meeple, because you can clear the board
pretty quickly
I think that's by design, though. That's what I'm trying to say, is that this game is by design is meant to, like, sort of change how it plays.
There's definitely progression. I think the scarcity is actually one of the a pretty neat element, the way the board clears out.
So after the beginning and the middle, I think strategies start to develop, and you start to by the time you get to the middle of the game, you realize how many viziers you have, how many elders, how many viziers and elders your opponents have. That those two, I feel like when they start coming off the board, strategies become a little bit clearer. Because it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to win on viziers, or I'm not going to have the most elders to buy Djinns, so now I'm going to pivot maybe to the resources. And I like that part. And then you're right, at the end of the game, that's, I guess you could call it the last third of the game, the Assassin's time, where like all of a sudden now it's like, boards are clearing up, tiles are clearing up, and you can use the Assassins to great effect. I also like that there are a lot of Djinns that allow you to get points for people coming through tiles that you control.
Didn't help me, but it's fun.
It's really smart because I noticed through all our playthroughs, I very much struggle, especially when I go earlier in initiative, later in rounds. I don't want to leave as I'm moving through empty tiles. I don't want to just leave one guy on an empty tile.
That's a bad strategy.
Especially if it's not owned by someone, because then someone can just claim that later in the round, and that's horrible. But then at the same time, because there are Djinns that allow players to get points for people moving through their controlled territories, that adds another, thing, another, wrench into the works, because it's like, now it's like I can either go through his territory or her territory and give them, 1 or 2 points per, depending on how it works, or I could leave it on an empty tile and someone can claim it and get those. I like how towards the end of the game, especially with the scarcity, the game becomes, I think, really punishing, and then it also becomes a game of how much do I want to hurt my opponent as much, or help my opponent as much as myself, because often towards the end of the games you end up helping people, especially if you go earlier in initiative. That was really clever. That just the growth of the game from the beginning of being random to strategies developing towards the end, where now it's kind of chaos. It's absolute chaos, I think, towards the end. Some people won't like that, though. A lot of people like a more controlled experience. I think that's what you're getting at. But
I like control.
There's no doubting that this game has almost like, it's not like a narrative, but it has a way of playing out that is really cool. All right,
move on.
Picking nits.
I think some people will be bothered. My last point. I think some people will be bothered, and I was occasionally bothered that in this game, not all meeples are created equally, because of the way the game plays out, because of the way that you can't really predict what people are going to do and whatnot. I would say that in certain situations, certain powers become way too inferior to other ones. For instance, if the market cards, there's like a ton of wheat or barley, whatever it is, or any of if there's like a ton of fakirs, all of a sudden people stop going to the market. Now all of a sudden, now that's kind of taken out as, a go-to strategy.
Yeah, part of me wishes there was like one more way to access either the market entirely or just the fakirs, because I don't know, it feels like there's a lot of them, and it really makes the market strategy a difficult one.
Once again, though, this game isn't meant to rely on one strategy.
I know
this
that,
is a
but
big one.
Back to my original point is it's very possible that it'll just be, there will be a lot of repeats, and then people will stop going to the market. It will never clear out, and then no one can use the strategy.
But that's also why if you get if you get all 9 different types, it's worth 60 points.
Yeah, I ended up getting.
So if it's easier to get to the market, it's just going to become a clear and obvious strategy.
I think we're getting too hung up on the market. My original point was,
you're wrong, Will.
No, my original point was that there are moments in this game where certain mechanics become outright useless, or not useless, they become inferior to other ones, and that can create, I think, balancing problems. And I think what we talked about earlier with the assassins becoming overly prevalent at the end, I think that's by design, but it's also not the most fun when basically the last third of the game is, like I said, it's like the assassins round. It just would have been nice if there was a little bit more balance between them. But the game makes up for it with an abundance of mechanics, with the tile abilities and stuff like that.
I don't know. That's just I don't think any. I just disagree with that. There were some that were more powerful than the others. Maybe at certain points in the game it happened that way, but I thought they were all pretty much useful depending on what showed up. That's all.
We're not friends anymore. It's fine.
All right, we've been droning on about the game for a while.
Yeah, let's talk about it some more.
Yeah, well, we should talk about. Let's talk about the components and the non-gameplay bits of the game real quick. Not garbage, that's for sure. It's obviously it's well made. You get all these fancy pieces.
They're wooden. Keep talking while I do this.
Let me open this one, Will. Oh, yeah, you get all these fancy wooden
Also,
pieces.
wooden meeples.
Oh.
They're generic meeples, though. They kind of let me down a little bit.
That's kind of, like, as well made as this game is, I don't love how it looks. I'm kind of tired of the Days of Wonder style, if that makes any sense.
They do all have a style, but man, is the artwork on the genie cards.
That is the exception. I love those. They're fantastic. Everything
incredible.
else about this game, though, is just kind of generic.
Yeah. A little bit.
Been there, done that.
They have this, like, not every, I'm not going to say this about every Days of Wonder game, but there is definitely a common, like, themes in them, so as far as how their components look, the sort of, like, typefaces they use, like, colors they use, like, they're all very, like, bright primary colors in here, and...
I like that they use colors you don't see very often, but they do use them a lot. Like, it's like teal instead of outright being blue. It's pink, and then there's orange, and then black randomly. But I do like that they choose not, like, unorthodox colors.
They try to go, like, vaguely, like, of the setting, but I don't really feel like they nailed the setting.
I just think that they have a style. They want all their games to be almost like related through the way that they're
homogenous. I mean, like, compare this to, like, Yamatai, another game, same designer, same company. I think Yamatai is way more interesting to look at least. Like, and just thematically, like, compare this to, like, Targi or, like, Century Spice Road, games that are set in a similar location of part of the world. Like, I feel like those games nailed, like, the theme better. This is just kind of generic. This is like the Disney Aladdin version of, like, Arabia. The rulebook is okay. I don't love it. There are occasional things where things aren't as clear as I'd like. They have this thing where there's different types of tiles. Like, blue tiles are either villages or sacred places. The red tiles are either markets or oases. Like, the oases are pretty obvious to pick out, but some of the Djinns will have specifications of certain, like, locations, and they never really clarify in here which is which.
That's the biggest weakness of the rulebook. I agree.
It's not a huge thing.
That came up in our game.
You could intuit it, but it's not. It seems like an odd oversight.
Yeah, I remember. I think I drew. It was. I could place a palace on any village. I think I had Borak during our game, and I remember thinking that villages were just like any of the red tiles or the blue tiles, like one of those two colors. And then you're like, no, it's even more specific than that. And I'm like, whoa, okay.
So
the game gives you massive.
it's pretty good.
Help sheets.
Yeah. Also, why?
No, I like it because it has all the Djinns on the back.
I always like that Days of Wonder gives you the
help sheet.
The help sheet, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's always nice. I hate when games don't give you, especially when a game has a lot of.
I think are good. Yeah.
Yeah. But
these are huge.
There's too many times we play a game that, like, would really benefit from something like this, and Days of Wonder always supplies one of these, and I always enjoy it. Helps me.
Scores and final thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. As we know, this is a very scientific process.
Scientific. There's a rubric and everything.
A lot of thought into our numbers here.
It's not true.
All right. So I do the out of 5 system. I'm gonna go 3.5. I think this game is it's fun enough, and mechanically, I think it all mostly works perfectly fine. It's just, I think, as far as personal preference goes, this game doesn't scratch the itch for me so much.
That's gross.
I really like this game. I think it's pretty typical Days of Wonder and Bruno Cathala game in general. So I guess I'm just not. I'm gonna give it one thumbs up. I don't know. I'm not in the mood to give it 2 thumbs up.
Okay, fair.
But I like the game.
I like that you used a singular adjective.
Can't be bothered to get that second thumb up in the air.
Yeah.
I do letter grades, and I think I'm going to settle on A-.
Okay.
I like Bruno Cathala games
Settled.
a lot.
Wait, I really like the way that rhymes. I forgot about that. All right, I'll give the 2 thumbs up.
Okay, good.
Thank you for watching this review of 5 Tribes, ladies and gentlemen. If you did enjoy it, please like, comment, subscribe, and share if you'd like. And of course, you can hit the notification button to get the notification, I guess, whenever we release a new video, which is typically every Wednesday and Friday. It's always every Wednesday and Friday. And, of course, you can check out our social media links. Our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are all linked to in the description below, as well as our gameplay video of this game if you want to check that out.
I would say that thank you to, I think we had numerous commenters recommend this game to us.
Oh, yeah.
They were absolutely right.
How dare they?
It is something that we all enjoyed to a variety of levels. I think Dee's being too harsh. In the moment, he seemed like he enjoyed it.
I agree.
I think it's just because he sucks at it that he...
I have literally won this game, so I don't want to hear that argument, all right? You know who hasn't won this game? Him, Mr. A- over here. So
shows you that he really liked the game. You know,
Apparently.
he doesn't need to...
I'm not obsessed with winning.
I only give games that I win really good grades.
That's
the way it works.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
If I don't win,
if I win a game, I automatically have to give it a horrible score because that means it's something wrong.
Something's wrong.
Yeah. The game's for idiots.
Yeah.
No.
Thank you for watching, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.